Thank you very much, Simmer. Appreciate it. It's always nice to hear other people's workflows, and of course, this Ed workshop is going to feature three different types. But I would like to emphasize that a lot of the functionalities you just saw there for Adobe Audition actually carry over very well to GarageBand, which is the one I will be presenting today. So make sure to share sound here. So this is what a GarageBand digital audio workstation looks like. You can maybe draw comparisons with Adobe Audition, but I would like to emphasize some things that are in terms of best practice that I think both Simmer and I have in common right here. First is you name your tracks. I think that's just good practice. You can, I mean, it's not like you're gonna lose where it is, but it's just good practice to have that, especially when you include like narration, music too, background, and all that. It can get a little hazy, and it's just better for either mind. Um, so yeah, so this is the podcast. This is with Claudia Cabral. The I don't really have a template like what Simmer does, although now that I see him do it, honestly, I might do that too. It's a really good idea. But I'm gonna also walk you through some of the basic what I just call like polishing up of audio files, and then I'll go into EQ, which is pretty exciting, especially for quarantine podcasting, which I'll get into. And then I'll include a little bit about like if you want music and how you want to incorporate music in your podcast, etc. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I'm just gonna so the headphone thing here is just you feature it, so everything else is muted. So let's start. Let's hear it out.
Because the first thing that actually came to mind when you did ask the question, though, was like the word being. And I think that's a big theme that I would share about my.
So right off the bat, and again, I think one thing I also want to emphasize is that like it's up to your discretion how specific you want to be with your polishing. You could go through like every single pause, gasp, breath, and remove it. And honestly, I think it's reflective of the type of podcast that you're doing. If you're doing one that's really emphasizing like the conversation of it over like an interview per se, something that's like truly supposed to be representative of dialogue, you could exercise some discretion and include some of those more natural uh, word quibbles and voice quibbles like ums and likes and knows. But again, it's up to your discretion, and ultimately you will fall under an equilibrium to what you think is best. For me, I do like to keep in ums where it's like a natural where like they say yeah 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 over like they're thinking about something. Those those could be a little bit, frankly annoying. So let's see.
Like the human part, like we're human beings. And I think like a huge part of my essence, a huge part of my being.
Actually, I just realized I've edited this part at least, so I'm just gonna start right here. Oh, whoops. Yeah, there we go.
Call a teacher or school situation that served as a role model for me that this is the way, I can't exactly say.
Yeah, so that sometimes you have to make executive decisions here. That I will take out. Okay, let's just say hypothetically that I do want to take it out. I might not, but so here, what you do as a shortcut, you can just press Command T, and also you can refer to all of the shortcuts that I present here on the document that I'll be sharing along with the recording. Command T is your friend. It's just cutting here, and you can selectively cut, for instance, right? Right here as well, you can cut. And what you can easily do is just drag over and replace it, right? So that drags over, and boom, you got it.
That's the way. I can't exactly say that the people I.
There you go. So you have somewhat of a clean cut. Of course, you can go other ways where you can like delete this and then move it over. Or if you want to be like extra spicy about things, you can simply just cut it here and drag over, right? There are, obviously multiple ways to do this.
Say that the people I encountered, showed me this.
Yeah, so that's a big pause. So I will go here. So that was where she said the right?
Show.
And what I simply often do in this case is just right here, take a cut and drag. So
encountered, showed me.
Actually, let me hear the whole thing.
Can't exactly say that the people I encountered showed me this.
Yeah. So sometimes as well, again, discretion, right? Sometimes silences can be powerful, especially when it's something profound, right? When we say something profound, we often take a pause, So if you do want to replicate that kind of that natural type of silence, you can here. But again, it's completely up to discretion. There's really not much else beyond that, right? It's really just cutting and going through every single, and just keep cutting. And eventually, it will like your thing will look like this, like
you can make progress on every single
a bunch.
Exactly.
I'm gonna reverse all this, but like eventually, once you zoom out, you'll see like as you record like just a bunch of cuts. And then when you're done, if you like, and honestly, I find this easier. You can press Control Join and join your audio. Oh, actually, this takes a while. I just realized this might not be the best idea, but the purpose of this is that it can just combine all these cuts, so they're not individual segments. And then you can move them easily versus like, okay, well, you want to move the whole thing. That means you have to select every single individual track, bunch them together, and then move them. So balancing the region and then making them into one audio file is actually really useful. But generally, you want to be sure that you don't have anything else that you want to, like once you're done with the audio track, that's where you can join and make it easier. So you're just going to bounce regions, etc. And you also want to select one track at a time to bounce. If you select both tracks, so like for instance, if I were to do this, they'll probably give me, yeah. So if you have two, they're going to ask you if you want to mix down the audio regions, which, if you want to, you can, but generally I like to keep them separate just in case I want to move them around. But there you go. You have, so now instead of like, for instance, if I wanted to move this whole thing, I would have to select each one of these, right? Or like, do that, and, or in this case, do that. And then, it just saves time in my opinion. Okay, so moving on to like automation. Automation is essentially what Simmer showed you here. So if you press A, just simply A, or this button here, that one, it will pull up the automation. Here you can, this is where you can essentially manufacture your own fading and your own, volume dynamics, etc. You can also change it to like, okay, I personally don't use these, but if you want to explore, you can. These are generally not useful for voice. The only useful thing for voice is volume, obviously. But so here, this is courtesy of my friend Alex. This is his guitar thing for Humans of Harvard. It's actually a really sweet jam. But let me move this whole thing. So see, the fact that I didn't mix this down, it means I have to like, select all of this and then move back and then drag, right? So if you mix them down, it's easier to select. So let's hear it out. So I generally like start it here. Normally there's like narration as well, but I'm just showing you a quick snippet.
Because the first.
Yeah, so in this case, so yeah, I like those. I'm just gonna delete these. So I fade this out and then fade that out slowly. So this is what you'll sound like.
Because the first thing that actually came to mind when you did
still want to hear the
music,
because
the word
it's good
being,
music.
and I think that's a big theme that I would share about myself. Like, it's humans of Harvard, right? Humans of Harvard.
So there you go. That's really all there is to that, honestly. Now and a lot of the other things that you saw with Audition, it's the same thing here. You can like drag and, oh, whoops. Let's see, like, okay, let's go here. You can drag, right? And if you want to delete, you can, there you go. You can drag, etc. It'll save where it was. But now onto the fun part, because I think this part's really relevant and you can use this in Audacity and Audition. I don't exactly know where you'll be able to get this, like where the plugin is, but once you do pull it up, once you do pull this thing up, I'll show you essentially, oh, well, it's pulled up here. So you can, I don't know if you can hear from my microphone, but you can definitely tell the audio quality difference. So let's hear mine. Go to the Boston Commons. And I've noticed something I've never noticed before when well, first of all, I don't really ride subways that often. I'm from California. Okay, so there's that. And I use the Rode Procaster, which, is a decent microphone. And Claudia was just using her computer audio, which might happen a lot with your guests if they don't, not everyone has a random microphone hanging around. So you can compare, right?
Because we're so, sometimes our minds are in different timelines. Like,
Notice something I've never noticed before right. So obviously, you're not going to be able to replicate perfectly a Procaster, audio quality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling obviously Procasters because but you can get really close, and that's through EQ or equalization. So here, whoops. So here, if you just double click this track, so we're on Claudia's track here, and you're on controls, on EQ here. So let's first go over the two major ones, low pass and high pass. So ironically, the bottom one here is called high pass. So human voices don't go below 80 hertz unless you're like interviewing, a tuba or something that just has outrageously low, sound. You can delete everything basically 80 hertz and below, and I would honestly just hear the difference.
If I was not recorded properly. I trust this present moment with my whole heart, and I think it's just,
yeah, there's no big difference there. But if your guest were to be speaking and there was like traffic noise out there or like low air conditioning, this will all be cut out. The next thing is a high pass. So again, similarly, human voices don't go beyond 5K hertz unless, of course, you're interviewing like a dolphin or something. You get the point. It's not gonna happen. So delete. I would personally recommend cutting anything above 5K. Other people may recommend like 8K or 6K, but I always do 5K. And you'll hear the difference too, especially if so here, I'll just show you the difference maybe. I don't know if you can tell.
Say that again if that was not recorded properly. I trust this present moment with my whole heart, and I think it's just realizing that.
Yeah, it's small, minute differences, and I forgot as well to mention, and this is really important, and Simmer mentioned it briefly, always edit with headphones. Right now, I'm not editing with headphones. It's on speaker. You have to keep in mind that most, if not all of your listeners are listening to your podcast on headphones, right? I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who listens to podcasts on a speaker or or their phone speaker, right? So you want to be editing as if your listener was listening, and you often pick up these small things that you can't pick up on a speaker because it's just ambiance. But yeah, so generally we go through high pass and low pass. Now the next stuff, the rest of these are less important, but they can just add slightly and improve slightly the audio quality of your guest. And if it's really atrocious, it can actually help. So again, you can refer to the document here. It just explains all of it. But generally, if you want to increase the clarity of your podcast, you can select this one, the blue one, and increase anywhere between 2 and 5K. So around here, you can bump it up a bit. And if your audio is a bit muddy, you can, the mid one here, you can lower it maybe like around between 5 and 1K. And similarly here, if you want to add additional clarity, you can kind of cut, we call it cut here. So overall, you'll see that like your EQ profile can look something like this, where you have a high pass here, a low pass here. Again, you're just cutting out the really low frequencies and the really high frequencies, and then slightly modulating the mid frequencies to either enhance a voice or reduce any sort of undesirable sounds in that naturally come with like a computer recording. But again, these three, I would really just play by ear, right? Just have your headphones in and modulate slightly and see what works. I wouldn't go crazy like beyond like 10, right? You see these like the axis here. It just becomes very noticeable that something's going on. But these are small, not imperceptible, but like small changes that, in my opinion, just add to the quality of your podcast, even if it is on the grand scale of things, not a big difference. But I think for those who are recording guests who do not have microphones, it's actually very useful. Beyond that, that's really about it. The one last thing I would care to mention is noise gates, which I don't know if I can find here. Yeah. Actually, can I find it here? Oh yeah, there you go. So you go to track and you go to controls here, and you can see here there's a noise gate. And basically what this does, so you can see like negative 56 decibels, right? So anything below that, it's cut. So if I were to do this, the noise gate at 100, you won't hear anything because I just cut everything. But here, I'll slowly decrease it. Go to the Boston Commons. And I've noticed something I've never noticed before well, first of all, I don't really write stuff with. Yeah, so the higher you do it, like you cut, but I would generally put it at -60, just so that it catches any like small hums, again, air conditioner or like breath sounds. So what Simmer did with the waveforms, you actually can't do on GarageBand. You can only do that on Logic Pro. But the best substitute for that would be noise gates. So anything below 60, -61 decibels, it'll cut. So that's all I have to share. Again, you can consult the document that I have posted with this GarageBand segment, and from there I'll just pass it on to Brandon.